Hi, my name is Joseph Alai. Welcome to my channel. And today I want to talk about the law of attraction versus manifestation. And I want to take you step by step through what the differences are, how to over time prove which one is actually true, which one is not true, and how to test it yourself essentially. So as you noticed, I've started to try to do a little bit different style videos. Naturally, I am a little bit better at explaining things when it's presented in front of me. And so I'm going to test a little bit of this out. So definitely leave a comment below as if you like this style of teaching. And now let's just jump right into it then. So no doubt, if you're watching my videos, which are really kind of honed in, narrowed down, you've heard of the law of attraction, right? You generally would never find my channel unless you've already been introduced to the law of attraction. But nevertheless, what I teach actually is not the law of attraction. Although a lot of the results or a lot of the teachings may kind of seem similar, they are not. And so I want to go into what the key differences are. So a lot of what I teach is actually based on scripture. And when I say scripture, I mean the Bible. When I say the Bible, generally I mean the King James Version of the Bible, because much or almost everything that has been taught about either the law of attraction or manifestation can be traced back to, and there may be other resources as well, but to scripture. And so for me, I found the most accurate is in scripture, but in scripture, it's talking about creation, not about attraction. And so as I said, you've heard of law of attraction if you're here, and there are a lot of different definitions, and it's kind of adapting more now due to kind of experimentation and people being able to share these resources to the masses, right? So when more information is revealed, the more you can kind of alter, test, and change what it is that are the premises or the theories of which we are using here. But to the law of attraction, generally, and this is what I essentially learned the law of attraction from. I was actually in a treatment facility. I was in rehab, and they played The Secret. So you may have heard of The Secret. That bases everything off of the law of vibration. The law of vibration essentially states that everything, everyone, every person, anything that exists has a vibration, has a vibrational frequency, right? So in truth, nothing or no one is solid. This is a scientific fact. Everything and everyone, every molecule has its own vibration. And so therefore, a sum total of molecules, or an item, an object, money, a car, the feeling of love, a person, everything itself has its own vibration, its own vibrational frequency. And so the theory is, or at least according to the video, is that when you vibrationally match something, you will attract it in. And so this is demonstrated often with using like I forget what it's called, but I think it's called a sound toning thing, like those where you hit it and it goes ding and it vibrates. So if you hold two of them side by side and you ding one, the other one will begin to vibrate as well. Now, although this logically, with this demonstration, it automatically makes one assume, wow, that makes so much sense. But ultimately, when you start to boil it down into the, actually testing it, watching the results, watching how this happens, the impersonal force of vibration actually makes no sense whatsoever. Some of the first questions that I've ever had about vibration when I believed it was, how do I know that what I'm imagining is going to come to me? How do I know it's not going to come to anybody else? And the reason I started asking that question was because of the way it's set up, right? Vibration, physics, all of these things are independent of a human mind, right? And so other books or stories, or like Napoleon Hill, for instance, when I read his book, The Law of Success, he talks about the law of attraction. He literally names it that. And this is written back, I don't know, almost 100 years ago, I'm assuming. But he also talks about like a radio frequency, and we're sending things out and things are coming in. But the flaws are, when we talk about this law of vibration and matching vibration, And this is, I have a whole list, a whole thing outlined just to see how that kind of helps me walk through this. But there's a couple fundamental flaws here. So the first flaw is that question: how do I know that if I'm emitting something, that something is going to be coming back to me, right? And so if I'm matching the vibration of, say, money, then therefore, how do I know the money is going to come to me? Or the instant when I stop, right? Say I stop thinking about money, is that going to be cut off? Am I going to stop receiving that? Or is that going to be handed off to someone else who is feeling that way? And so that is a very valid question. That is a logically formulated question, because according to this law, that is how it works. And so what you will find is that neither of those things happen. So if I imagine myself holding large sums of money, and then I stop and I forget about it entirely, but I can really capture that experience of having a large sum of money, then it doesn't matter if I stop and it takes 6 months, I will receive that sum of money. So that means, first of all, that the vibration thing doesn't actually make sense. It doesn't make sense, right? And there's another reason why it doesn't make sense, which is probably more important and more obvious than the one that I just mentioned. And it is that you cannot match a vibration of another object without actually taking on the form of that other object. And so if I vibrationally match the frequency of money, then, well, I should, and according to physics, which is where they're basing this whole thing, I would actually have to be money. I would literally be money. So there's no possible way to take on the vibrational frequency of another object unless I am myself that object. So I know there's way more, and some of you are probably still saying like, yeah, but that's not how I understand the law of attraction. I get it. There's more though, and as you dive deeper, you will figure this out. So the other thing is the idea that you must maintain vibrational frequency with the desired state in order to receive that thing that you desire. Now, this is even now with manifesting, which is what I teach, right? Regular manifesting. This idea to maintain is a consistent problem when I talk to my clients and or my VIP members. The idea kind of bleeds over here that we must continuously maintain ourselves in that state if we wish to experience that in reality, which again, essentially alludes to the idea that if we stop, if we cut off that feeling, if I forget about it, if I change my mood from feeling wealthy to feeling impoverished, then too bad, so sad, I am not going to be able to manifest that thing. Well, again, this is false. Now you can test this. I'm going to do a video on this board about writing things down and the journal mechanism test, or the journal technique that I've kind of stumbled upon, which will prove to you that this is false. So just for your own experience, right? And you can test this. I've tested this enough times to the point where it's not even a question anymore. If you imagine something, say you deliberately imagine after you have already become the person that you want to be. So if you want to be rich, or if you want to be married to someone, when you imagine that, if you can experience that fully in your imagination to the best of your ability, and you can truly saturate your mind with that experience, what you will find is, if you can truly get that truth, you can experience that in a real true form, even if you never think about it again, you've already done the act, right? You've already done the act, which means that you will manifest it in reality. Now, it may take a day, it may take a week, it may take a month, it may take a year. We're not in control of when and how it's going to come, but you can prove this and test this yourself. You probably already have, though, that you will definitely receive it. So what that does is that takes off a lot of the pressure. And in fact, it is impossible to consistently maintain yourself in a specific state because we're constantly fluctuating all day long. Now, I already talked about matching your vibration. Makes no sense literally. Mood. This is a critical one here. Extremely critical. So the idea that it is only mood which manifests. Meaning, if I visualize something but I don't add emotion to it, then it will not manifest. So that's the premise from law of attraction. Again, 100% false. So this is probably, if you have never heard this before, you'll probably say, well, what does this guy know talking about me? Or you'll probably say, if that is true, that will be the biggest relief I have ever felt. What I find is I've received hundreds of emails from individuals talking about how after they learned this fact that mood is not the only thing indicative of manifestation, or mood is not the only thing which can manifest, that is false, that is the biggest relief. And because there's a premise which goes with this, that you have to always maintain a good mood. So it kind of goes hand in hand with what I just said, but the idea is that if we are in a bad mood, then we are going to manifest bad things. So in other terms, we have to always stay in a good mood, right? That's the premise that I hear time and time again. You know the teacher who says this, you know the multiple teachers who say this. Untrue. So as I said before in the previous one, if we imagine and we let it go, it will have a better chance of manifesting than if you continuously maintain in that state. Now, the reason for that is because instead of it being a vibration, it is much more like a seed being planted in the ground, right? And that's talking more about manifestation. But when we imagine the end, we are selecting the state in our imagination. And then in a way which is inconceivable, that will grow. So all the ways and means are contained within the imaginal act. So if I imagine myself to be a very rich person, then eventually, after I imagine that seed gets planted once it's impressed in the subconscious mind. So the process of manifesting is essentially imagining, impressing in the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind connected to something, which is connected to all of us, will then move everyone to become the thing, or become the person that they need to be in order for me to receive my manifestation. But we're going to get into that a little bit later. So the final thing about the law of attraction, and this kind of goes along with the idea of how do I know where this manifestation is going to come? What if I stop matching the vibration? All this stuff is that it's an impersonal force, that it's just a vibration. Now, like I said, there's varying levels of law of attraction beliefs. Some believe that it's just truly a law of, waves attracting other things, and just like magnetism, right? And to an extent, this is absolutely true. You can fully depend upon the law of manifestation, but it's not coming from vibration, right? So what I mean by that is it is not an impersonal force. There's very simple ways to test this, such as asking a question and then you can get a response, which means there is an infinitely intelligent force which is providing at will any and everything that we call upon. And so that is in no way impersonal. And from my testing and experience, and from the experience and stories of many others, it is actually a quite personal force. So that is law of attraction in a nutshell. I want to briefly move over a different kind of idea, and that is the idea of telepathy, right? So telepathy is essentially the idea that I am directly sending thoughts to you, which means that if I want you to take a certain action, I have to try to control you and force you to become the person that I want you to become. And again, that would mean that there is a time frame around a manifestation. Now, this to some people is bad news, and to other people it's good news. And I didn't even write this down, which I'm going to right now. But if I am directly influencing you through my thoughts, through imagining, sending you some type of whatever it is, brain waves or whatever the case is, then that would mean that when I am thinking about you, in that same instant, in that same moment, you will also, or at least shortly thereafter, you will begin to think the way that I want you to think, right? And so that means that there's a time frame that as soon as I imagine, you're going to start taking the action towards becoming the person that I want you to be the instant I imagine it, right? Now, again, this is false, and I will get into more of an explanation after, but essentially the idea instead is that there's an intermediary between you and me. So here I am, J-O, actually let's just write J-A. J-A, and then here is friend. This is you. So instead of there being a one-way connection between you and I, now this is Again, this is really kind of making it really easy to understand. There's a bit more behind the scenes in this, but instead of it being connected from you and I, there's an intermediary source between you and I, right? And that's what I have labeled here, right here. And I'll get into that in a bit. So, but the way that you can test that is by imagining something. Imagining, for instance, a friend of yours taking a very specific action, right? A very specific action in first person point of view, right? But I forgot to mention that. This should also be mentioned here. I'll explain a little bit after first person point of view. But imagine your friend takes a very specific action. What you will find is that it is possible for it to happen quite quickly, but is also possible that you forget about it by the time it happens, which means it can take a day, a week, a month. They will take that action though. What that means is they are not, you are not controlling them directly. Time is not a factor that is of your control, although it happens as fast as it can happen. We are not directly influencing people. Instead, what we are doing is impressing upon the subconscious mind. That thought that we impress upon the subconscious mind, that scene that we impress upon the subconscious mind is fed to an infinite intelligence. That infinite intelligence moves the other person and or a million people in order for that image that I've impressed to be expressed in this reality. So I'll get into that just in a minute. But so this idea, basically the way you can test this incorrectly or that you can prove this idea false is by directly imagining that a friend, or do 2 or 3 different scenes of different people, that they will become the person that you imagined. And let me rephrase that. Imagine other people taking specific actions. Right off the bat, what we do is we expect for that person to instantly begin to take on that form of that new person. But what you will find is that the time is not of your control, which means it is not a direct influence, right? Another way to test this, to see this, is that the road for that person to take that action will be way above and beyond any comprehension of what you could have possibly conceived, which means there is, again, an infinite force that is extremely genius, moving thousands, sometimes millions of people at the same time for a common goal that one singular person, such as myself or you, have imagined. And so telepathy is out. Now, it doesn't mean that thoughts are not picked up on. Like, for instance, today I was at Sprouts, which is down somewhere near here. The instant I walked into that store, a daydream started playing in my mind and anxiety hit me. I started daydreaming that a fan or a viewer called me out, saw me there, right? Now, it wouldn't have really mattered to me. It doesn't matter. I'm going to a public place. People see me sometimes. Nevertheless, the thought came up and then this feeling inside of me, like anxiety. Why? I don't know. I just was walking in with the stroller. Well, anyway, not more than 5 minutes later, I hear Joseph, and I look over, and there was someone, you're probably watching this now, called me out. So what does that mean? How is it that I foreknew that event was happening? Now, I didn't deliberately know that it was going to happen, but I was shown it before it happened, which happens sometimes. Well, there's a very good reason for this. And the reason is that I deliberately wrote down that I would perceive events before it happens. So how would that be though? How would I know that? How would I be the one in command that I would foreknow events before they happen? Well, that leads to this law of manifestation, or from the Bible, the way that the Bible describes it, creation. So the idea is, and this is testable, you can test this yourself, but the idea is that there is an awareness, right? So I'm not going to get too deep into what awareness is, but suffice it to say, and you can see some of my other videos, that awareness is essentially, if I asked you right now if you are aware, you would say yes. There's no choice. You are aware. You're aware of your thoughts. You're aware of your feelings. You're aware of me talking to you. Well, in the Western world, we identify ourselves by our thoughts and by our body, meaning I am this body and I am the thoughts that I think of. Well, the truth is that we are the awareness which is aware of those thoughts in this body, which means you can cut off any limb of this body. Thoughts come and go, but that awareness is exactly the same. Well, so that awareness in the Eastern world is God, right? So the God of Scripture is the I am, right? The awareness. But there's only one God, which means the God in me is the God in you. The awareness in me is the awareness in you, is the awareness in every single person or any living creature or any non-living creature in the world. All things exist within awareness. And so the premise actually is that this awareness is pulling the strings, right? So the field of awareness is where all thoughts go through, where thoughts come from, exist, where everything exists from. And so when the human mind, Joseph Alai, imagines something, what I'm actually doing is feeding the awareness this image. So if I imagine myself being rich or married or any of these things, if I do it properly, I will impress my subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is that which is connected to this awareness, right? This is a way, as a concession to the mind, this is the way that it should be perceived. So essentially, when I imagine, I impress my subconscious mind, and that subconscious mind pushes into awareness this image that I've just imagined, right? IMG, right? So that awareness is the same awareness that's in you. And it's also one of infinite intelligence. And so if my desire is to receive, say, $1 million, then this awareness is going to move maybe you, maybe another person, maybe 100,000, maybe 1 million different people. And this infinite intelligence is going to feed each person impulses that they think is their own thoughts, so that they will begin to take actions in accordance with my imaginal act, right? And so in the end, what you find is that this awareness, which is shared by all of us, is dictating everyone's movement. So when I imagine having that $1 million, that image itself is impressed upon the subconscious mind connected, or the subset of awareness. So the subconscious mind feeds into this infinite field of awareness that desire, right? That imaginal act. That imaginal act then will move, that awareness begins to create a master plan. Like it basically compresses a seed with all of the ends and means to manifest this end goal, right? So anyone and everyone has the power to manifest anything that they want. And in fact, it's happening every single moment of the day. You've always been doing this. You are operating right now based on your own manifestations, and even you are operating based on my manifestations. But nevertheless, it happens in a way which is miraculous. So I have seen events with 20 different facets, 30 people involved or more, all leading towards the same manifestation. So the ingenious nature of the seed that is flowering outward and finally reaching its fruition, consisting of ingenious, least effort events, eventually leads to me receiving my manifestation. Now, there's one key here which really drives this home, which really makes this that you can test, that makes this really, really accurate, right? There's a couple. I'll name a couple. So one is that the replication of your impression will be manifested. And so that means that whatever you imagine, so say this picture right here, this is a tree, by the way, right? Let's draw a branch, a leaf, whatever. So say this picture is what I have imagined, and say I have imagined it with intense accuracy, right? It will come out and be expressed to me in the identical form that it was impressed, which means a carbon copy of this image will be expressed in this reality. So, in other words, if I imagine myself, right, this is my hand reaching out, like say it's first person point of view, that say this is my perception, and say I'm receiving a $10 bill right here, and I impress this rather perfectly, it will manifest in the same nature and be returned back to the sender. So you can prove that it's an exact replication of your perception, which is your awareness that is manifesting, by getting an extremely accurate imaginal act. So do this then. Instead of imagining yourself in first person point of view, which is the way to do it, imagine yourself in third person point of view, which means perceive yourself, right, receiving money, which means you're not looking from your own eyes, which would be in this picture. You're looking from a camera perceiving you from a distance. If you can impress properly this image, then you will watch another person will receive that manifestation. And the reason for that is because the exact copy of your awareness will be expressed to you. Meaning if I'm perceiving something in third person point of view, that means another individual must receive, a third person must receive that manifestation. So there's a lot more to be said about this, and I will go into a lot more depth on this, but I hope that this was kind of helpful to show you what experiments you could do essentially to test and prove each of these falls. So this one, essentially what you do is imagine, then stop imagining, right? Imagine, let it go. Write something down, never think of it again, and watch how it still comes. And you'll prove this. The mood thing wrong, the matching the vibration continuously wrong, maintaining, anything regarding vibration, prove it wrong, right? This one is imagining and watching how everything moves independent of your willpower, right? So therefore, thusly, imagine a friend doing a specific behavior, and then watch how long it takes for it to happen. It will be independent, and generally speaking, after you forget about it or let it go, that's when the other person will do it, which proves that it's not a direct connection, right? And then this one, imagine to the best of your ability, impress your subconscious mind properly, and watch how everything is you pushed out. Watch how everyone takes on your beliefs, assumptions, imaginal acts, and whatever. So imagine in first person and third person, do it to the best of your ability, and prove and watch the miraculous nature of how many different intricate systems are connected at all times, and watch how this whole world is you pushed out. And so that is the difference between law of attraction versus manifestation. I hope this was helpful. When I first realized this, now here's the thing, it took me 10 years to figure all this stuff out. This was not, I didn't learn this from anyone. This was through deliberate testing for just about 10 years straight. This was writing down every experiment, systematically putting this stuff to the test until I was able to conclude this myself. When I first got into law of attraction, no matter what, the accuracy, inaccuracies, the things that made no sense, it still helped me because I got to see that I could control to an extent my world. You know, moving forward, I was only in this for a little bit until I got to this awareness phase, which truly you will find is 100% accurate. It will not happen overnight. It may take you days, weeks, months, and years to fully prove all this to yourself, but I hope that you keep this in mind when listening to specific people, when doing specific experiments, and when testing it so that you can be really as masterful as you possibly can. So listen, thank you for watching. If you liked it, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and if you want more of this very broken down, systematic way of manifestation in a predictable, consistent way. So thank you.